All right, hello everyone. Hope you're all having a great Sunday afternoon. It's kind of cold and rainy where I am. There's a lot of storms coming in. I think we're still under some kind of tropical storm warning from the hurricanes that continue to hit Puerto Rico and just keep flowing in. It's been kind of a crazy season so far, moving in from summer to fall. So this weather has been kind of rough for trying to take photos in. All right, let's get all my windows organized here. You know, before anything, I should probably make sure I have the privacy on public. There we go. So I've run into way too many situations before where I've accidentally had the stream on private and I've been talking to myself for like 10 minutes. So gotta make sure I don't do that. All right, I'm gonna hang out here for just a second and let a few of you guys start to join in. And then we'll do a quick live demo of just a couple of my favorite new features that ON1 added to the new Photo Raw 2018. I think it's actually really, really cool. They added quite a few new masking tools, some luminosity masking actually, which is really nice, and you can kind of fine-tune the luminosity masks as well. So we'll get into that here in just a minute. All right, looks like we got a few people joining in now. If you guys are joining in, hop in the chat window. Let me know where you're viewing from. It's always fun to see that. My last live stream, I had people from like, what was it, Australia, Scotland, Brazil. It's like just crazy, like all over the place. All right. Well, before we get started, let me know in the chat window if my video and my audio are all coming through okay. And then once you guys have confirmed that for me, we will get started here. Still trying to get my windows in order so I can get the ON1 window to show up here. Get ON1 Photo Raw. By the way, have you guys downloaded ON1 2018 yet? It's actually it's a free public beta right now, so it's actually pretty cool that they released kind of like the beta version for free to let you try out to see if you like it first. All right. Campbell Rice says Russellville, Arkansas. Sounds good. Awesome. Wow, Arkansas. Cool. All right, cool. Well, since we're all good to go, I'm going to go ahead and hop into ON1 Photo Raw 2018 here. They've made a lot of cool new changes. I'm just going to talk about a couple of my favorites. And yeah, the ON1 2018, by the way, it's much faster, like insanely fast. The HDR merging and the panorama merging is just, it's like 3 times to 4 times as fast as Lightroom. It's crazy. It just spits them together so fast. Even on my D810 36 megapixel files, it just spits them all together. I mean, it's crazy how fast it is. Let's see. Philip says, all good, loving ON1 2018. Anton says, works good, watching from Canada, downloaded and tried. Awesome. All right, cool. So yeah, from what I know, the full version of 2018 is going to be released later this month, so it's not going to be too much longer, I wouldn't think. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and hop into ON1 2018 now, and we'll give you a quick demo of what they've been working on, because they have been busy over at ON1. Okay, so this here, we'll do this one first. Let me open it up in the develop module here. So this is a photo that was taken on the Fujifilm X-T2 with the 55 to 200 lens, okay? And so what I'm going to do here, so basically I focused on this huge patch of trees in the foreground, and I kind of wanted the mountains in the back to fall into a nice kind of blurry, soft background. And normally I like the whole photo sharp, but I don't know, I liked it. It needed kind of a glowy tone and kind of a fairy tale type look for this photo. So let's just get started on some basic, I'm not going to bore you with all this stuff. I'm just going to do some basic recovery stuff here, shadow recovery, highlight recovery. Bring down the exposure a bit, just the regular stuff. They do have a brand new processing engine, by the way, so the Fujifilm files I have noticed look even a little bit better still. So that's always good news for us Fuji RAW shooters. I'm going to take the dehaze up a little bit. Okay, so now let's look into one of their new abilities here. So I'm going to hop into the effects module here, okay? And when you hop into the effects module now, you can add a filter like always, and I normally like to add this dynamic contrast filter, and you can see what that does. If I flick it off and on, and off and on, it adds like a really nice, like a micro contrast effect to the foreground and the trees. But if we zoom in here, it also really starts to add some noise and some really gross repeating patterns in the mountain and the shadows back here. If we turn that off and on, you can see it's doing nice things to the trees, but it's having some negative effects where the trees meet the mountain here, because there was some fog back here, and so it almost is making it look like a halo around the trees. So I really just want it on the trees, and I don't want it on the sky or the mountains, because that's just going to introduce noise. So before in ON1 Photo Raw 2017, if I wanted to do something about this, I would have to kind of manually paint or use some kind of a gradient mask to do this. Now you can actually target these things with Luminosity Masks. So watch this. So here's my dynamic contrast filter here, and I'm going to hit the mask button, and now you have some new options. You have this Lumin button, which is for Luminosity Mask. So let's go ahead and view the mask first. So this is what the mask looks like. If we click Lumin and make it a Luminosity Mask, now it's actually measuring the light in the scene just like a Luminosity Mask does. It's just going to make everything to a black and white tone, measuring the light. So the way Luminosity Masks work and the way masking works is anything that's in white is being affected, and anything that's in black is not. So basically right now, based on this Luminosity Mask, the sky is getting all of that dynamic contrast, and the foreground is getting very little of it. Well, I want to turn that around. So what we do is we come up here and we invert the Luminosity Mask. We just click invert, one click of a button, and now the sky is black, the foreground is really white, and the mountain is kind of a gray, which means the mountain is probably getting 20 or 30% of that dynamic contrast. But I don't want any of it. I don't want any of that effect on the mountain. So here's the coolest part. With the Luminosity Mask new selection here, you also get this new panel of tools, which is density, feather, levels, and window. And the levels here, if you're familiar with working with luminosity masks in Photoshop, you know that once you create a luminosity mask, you can hit Command L in Photoshop and you can get this little levels panel to kind of fine-tune your luminosity mask. So that's what I'm going to do here, except I don't have to go through a million steps like you do in Photoshop. I'm just going to start to clamp off the blacks even more, and I'm going to fine-tune this to where it's just the foreground. So I'm going to keep clamping that off. Clamp and clamp and clamp those blacks all the way down until the very back line of the trees. Okay, now look, now the mask is just representing that the white, which is the affected part of the mask, the white is the foreground and the trees, which is exactly what I want to be affected. And up here, all the sky and the mountain is not affected by the mask because it is in black. So now if we click View and get back to the regular photo, and we turn this off and on, it's just affecting the foreground like I wanted it to begin with. So let's zoom in here and I'll show you. So here we go. So I'm going to turn this off and on and off and on. So we just have that beautiful micro contrast in the trees and adding all that beautiful detail to each little tree limb, but it's not affecting our mountain or the very back line here, creating that halo anymore. It's just a very soft, subtle, natural effect, which is exactly what I wanted. So that's just one way of using the luminosity tool. You can use it in a million different ways. If we wanted to affect the sky, for example, add a filter to the sky, we could do that, which I'm not going to do that right now, but I am going to, just for fun, kind of finish processing some of this. We'll add one of my favorite filters, which is a sunshine filter. Let's see, what do I want to do? Let's try a glow, maybe a strong. What does a neutral do for us? Let's see, if we did a glow, kind of added some warm tones to that, backed off on the saturation a little bit, back off on the glow just a little bit. Okay, we can add that in just to the sky portion. If we wanted to, we could just keep creating these masks like this, and we can just keep painting in and painting out certain portions. Of course, you could do a luminosity mask just like we did a minute ago. So technically, you could go here, click Lumen again, and we could just have it affect the sky. So this time, we could do the opposite. We can make sure that the trees are in black, like so, and that the glow is just going to affect the mountain and the sky. So we can kind of crank this up in the sky and make that a little more white. Okay, you can also do this great new feather tool, which kind of feathers the edges of the mask. Kind of makes it a little, basically it makes the edges of the mask a little blurry, which is what feathering does, and it actually works really nice. So if we do that and we click view, well, now that glow and that warm tone, look, it's not affecting the trees at all anymore. Now it's just in the sky and in the mountain. So this isn't, you know, a wonderful 5-star photo, but, you know, we can always go back to develop and keep adding some things here. We can keep cranking down those highlights, crank down the overall exposure, give the shadows a little bump again, hop over to our histogram and find the white point, and add some more blacks in there, maybe take up the vibrance a bit, take the overall Kelvin value to the warm tones. Okay, now we're getting a pretty decent image just with a couple little tools. But the best part is when you're in the effects module here, if we hop back to the effects module, you can keep adding these filters, as many as you want, and you can affect each individual filter with a mask, just like a layer in Photoshop. So each filter gives you the opportunity to do a mask or a luminosity mask. And each luminosity mask has its own set of levels and tools. So if you're wondering what the window tool does here, this basically controls your shadows and your highlights. So you can just clamp off the shadows, or you can just clamp off the highlights and have it affect one or the other. See how that's coming into the highlights more now? So it's really cool. You can actually affect your highlights and shadows differently in the luminosity mask with one set of sliders here. Anyway, so that's just one example there. I'm going to give you another example of a new tool they added in the toolbar pane over here. But before we do that, let's hop back over to my chat window and see what's going on. Let's see here. Oh yeah, you guys have been getting busy over here in the chat. Let's see. Mike says, nice, going to try it. I hope it's better than Lightroom with Fuji RAW files. Yes, Mike, it is definitely better than Lightroom with Fuji RAW files for sure. Let's see, Chris says, it all works great, faster as well, but when I try to export an image to TIFF or edit in Photoshop, it just keeps rendering and I need to restart my PC. Yeah, I mean, if they're big files, that's kind of going to happen in a lot of softwares. Sometimes it can be a little slower in ON1, I have noticed, but keep in mind that this is also just a beta version. So, you know, they said there's still going to be some bugs. For example, you know, as I've been using 2018, I've noticed that, you know, a couple times my little rainbow wheel on my computer has gone up, and it's just because this is still a beta. They're still working out bugs and kind of refining things. So keep that in mind as well. When they release the full version later this month, I'm sure all that'll be ironed out. And then they also give free updates as well for bug fixes. Let's see, Mike says, do they have Fuji Classic Chroma Astia Velvia? I'm not sure. I don't believe so yet, but I think it's coming. But I could be wrong. I don't know. Because I don't do the Fujifilm simulations a lot. Let's see. Dennis says, hi, Eric. Exporting files via ON1 2017 and 2018 are totally over-sharpened, even at its lowest setting. That's odd. I find that it's weird because I find that ON1 Photo RAW actually under-sharpens most things, which I like because when I take it into Photoshop, I actually use different sharpening tools in there. So that's weird. I'm surprised you're having that issue because I find that even using the sharpener slider in ON1, it's very subtle. Like I have to take it to 80 to 90% to really start to see some of the things start to pop, which I like. I don't like sharpening tools in Lightroom where it just crushes everything and it just kind of smushes the pixels together. Philip says, this is what Photoshop Blend If does. Now I can do the same with those sliders and luminosity. Yeah, so the Photoshop Blend If stuff is... It works okay, but it's still... Using luminosity masks and proper brushing techniques is, in my opinion, is still better than that. You still get a more natural-looking result, but if you have the patience, the Blend If does work if the exposure kind of falls in the realm of what will work with that. But I have found that the Photoshop Blend If doesn't work every single time. But luminosity masks always will because it's just doing nothing but measuring the light in your scene, and there's always going to be some light source in your scene, and you just have to tell it what light source you want it to clamp off and what source you want it to affect and not affect. Okay, I think I caught up on the chat here. Let's hop back in to ON1 Photo RAW here, and I'll show you another nice little tool that they added. Let me get back to my ON1 window. All right, I'm good. So let's hop back to Browse, and I'll show you this photo here. I actually went with my family to a pumpkin patch not too long ago, and went to a place called Bert's Pumpkin Farm. here in Dawsonville, Georgia, way up north in the mountains. And basically, I took this shot because I wanted to use this as a demo shot for this. I knew it would be perfect because it was just gray skies. And you can see there's no detail and no interest whatsoever in this sky. So let's say that you were a photographer and you got commissioned to shoot this image for this pumpkin farm. Maybe they wanted something for their website, right? And they had already scheduled you for the day, and it just so happened that on this day, the weather wasn't right, and you had this kind of crappy, gray, non-interesting sky. So what would you do in an instance where you have to basically deliver a good-looking shot? I don't like sky replacements, but I have had to do them before if a client needs me on a specific day where the weather conditions just aren't right. So the first thing I would probably do to this is make it a black and white. I'll just take all the saturation out of it, okay? And I think that already looks a lot better. And then I just need a good sky to go along with this. So I'll show you a couple of things with the sky replacement that they added. That's pretty cool, how you can kind of refine the mask a little bit. So let's hop over to Effects. Let's add a filter, and we're going to add what's called Textures, okay? And right now, the category is on walls, so like wall textures, but we're going to do skies. So we're going to change the category to skies. Okay, but before we pick a sky or do anything, let's go ahead and create a mask on this. And let's do View Mask. All right, and we'll do Invert. Actually, I take that back. Let's do this. And let's go get the perfect brush up here. So the perfect brush, if you're not familiar with ON1, the perfect brush is basically perfect for painting around hard edges. It will kind of smart detect the edges here. So let's do this. Let's invert the mask to a black mask, which hides the effect. It hides that texture right now. And let's just take this and start, let's see, feathering at 0, opacity 100, and we'll just start painting around the edges here. And I want to show you what this does when I'm done painting. So I'll keep painting around that edge. All right. And we'll paint around the other edge, like this. You can see I nicked a little spot right there on the edge, so let me just undo that. Okay, and now if we do View the Mask, you can see, look how perfect it did a cutout of that building. The perfect brush it really works really good for stuff like this, for sky replacements and kind of learning to cut around these sharp edges. Let me make the brush a little smaller. Okay, I'm going to undo this little area that spilled over into the building here. There we go. There's a little area here that's built in. Okay. And we'll just keep painting all this out because this is the sky. We want the sky to be affected with white because that's where we want the sky replacement to go. So I'm just going to get rid of all this. Okay, and that was fairly quick. That took me about, I don't know, a minute and a half to do that. And now we have a perfect cutout of this building. So now let's do this. Let's go to the skies down here, and let's just kind of sift through them and see what might be a good way to go. Let's change the mode to Replace, okay? And let's see here. Let's just keep going through these skies and see what might fit. Now, obviously, I'm going to have to change the saturation of the sky. Let's try something like that. Maybe even, yeah, let's see, maybe that. Okay, we'll choose this sky for now. And when you choose a sky, you have your own set of tools, your own little panel down here to change the brightness of the sky, the saturation, which obviously we're going to go all the way down because it's a black and white photo. We're also going to take the brightness of the sky all the way down, kind of make it a little moody sky. And this has already changed this photo, already. This is a big difference. The Burt's Pumpkin Farm sign is just popping right off of that barn. Now we have some nice clouds to complement it, but there's still a big issue here. And the issue, I'm sure you can already see, the issue is that there's this big halo around the edge of the barn here, okay? So that happens a lot with these selections. So the coolest part about how to fix this is that ON1 created this brand new tool in the 2018 version right here called the Chisel Mask tool. And it does exactly what it says it does. It chisels the mask, the edge of the mask away, and it pretty much gets rid of that halo. So let's zoom in a little bit more here. Okay. And watch this. You have to kind of play around with the amounts, so we're just going to do an amount of 30 at first to see if that's too much or maybe too little. And look, the halo, it's just erasing that halo from the mask. It's basically scooting the mask back like a ½ inch just to get rid of that halo. and it's just going to clean all that right up for me. And since it's getting rid of the halo, now things are starting to look a lot more natural. So let's just keep going with that. Okay, and you can always change the amount, and you can keep getting more and more of that little halo gone. Hence the name. It's a chisel tool, so you can keep chiseling off that mask as much as you want. Okay, we'll go over here. We'll chisel the top of that mask here. Same thing all the way down. And then we'll take a look at it in just a second and see how it looks. But I think this is just some of the coolest technology, because I do have a way to get rid of halos in Photoshop, but it's a little more cumbersome than this. This is a very easy and quick way of getting rid of the halo. Okay, so there you go. Now, let's zoom out again. I'm going to move this photo over. And look at that. Now there's no ugly white line around the barn, and you can even still come over here to this feather line, and you can feather the mask a little bit. If we click the view button, look how we can feather it, and it kind of, the edge of that barn gets a little blurry. So you can even still blend it in a little better, and there you go. And you can feather it more or less, and if you feather it too much, you'll start to have that line around it again. So you want to be kind of a little conservative with your feathering. So around 8% looks good here. You can even change the density of the mask if you wanted to, which is basically the opacity of the mask. But I think that's really, really nice. I mean, that already changed the photo. We can go back to develop if we want to and start doing some of the actual global changes to everything. We can add some contrast to that barn again, kind of dig out some more shadows out of it, add some more blacks. You know, you can do all sorts of things. But I just thought that Chisel Mask tool was really cool to be able to just kind of, it basically just scoots the mask back like an inch or a half an inch, you know, depending on the amount that you use. And I mean, it just looks so much better. It's amazing how it just blends everything in. So you can also experiment, of course, if you go back to effects, you can experiment with different blending modes. Instead of the replace mode here, you can make it a subtle or lighter or darker. But I just find that the replace works the best, that it just gives me the actual full 100% opacity sky, and then I can go with it from there. But I think that looks really cool, and that's one of those things that I never really do, but it can save you in a pinch if you get commissioned by a company to go shoot something outside and the weather just isn't cooperating for you. Sometimes you have to do these things to deliver to take something that's like a 2-star photo and give them a 5-star photo, because you never want to skimp out on your clients, right? When it comes to your clients, you want to deliver the best of the best of the best work that you can possibly deliver. So this is one of those tools that helps you do that without having to spend a ton of time doing that, because we all know that time is money when you're working for these clients. So anyway, I thought that was a pretty cool tool that they added there. Very, very cool. Let me catch up on the chat window here and get back over to my window. Let's see. Where are we at here? Sorry, guys. I'm having to scroll back and catch up. Let's see. Justin Hopgood. Hey, Eric. Good to see you. Hey, what's up, Justin? Dennis says, I meant the sharpening applied while exporting with the resize module. Oh, so specifically to the resize module. Yeah, I don't use the sharpening in the resize module. I normally do all of that in Photoshop, and I simply just use the resize module for its resizing technology, because that's where I've told you before, ON1 has this patented technology called genuine fractals and pixel interpolation. And again, that sounds really complicated, but basically what it does is it takes a photo at native resolution and it just blows it up to whatever the heck you want it to be, and it makes it look really good. So I do all my sharpening pre-resize, and then once I do all of my processing and sharpening, I resize it in ON1, just resize. I don't do any kind of exporting, sharpening, or anything. I just let it resize and then export it. That way I do all my fine-tuning stuff in Photoshop and ON1 pre-resize, and then let resize just do what it's meant to do, which is resize. But I haven't played around too much with the sharpening inside of resize, so I'm not too familiar with if it's good or bad. But if you're not happy with it, I would just do it elsewhere where you like the sharpening, and then just let it do the resizing for you for the dimensions that you want to print. Let's see here. Steve says, what is the best way to learn ON1 from a beginner's perspective? Seems like every time I begin to get a handle, they do a major upgrade. Yeah, I agree with you. So yeah, it's definitely a little tough learning some of these new softwares, because now it's such a competitive market that everyone's kind of trying to up the other person, and it just keeps it's kind of like cameras, right? We try to learn a camera, and then before we know it, there's like 5 more cameras in 1 year that we have to learn, and all this new technology. The best way is just keep following my YouTube channel, and I'll keep doing tutorials on this. But also, ON1 has a YouTube channel, and they release like short little, I think they call them ON1 short clips, and they release little tutorials on how to do all their new features. So basically, as they add new features, ON1 releases these little short clips that shows you how to do them. And they go, because it's ON1, the manufacturer of the software, they go very slow, step by step through all the stuff. So I would just subscribe to the ON1 YouTube channel too. And they do a lot of great tutorials over there, obviously specific to ON1 because they are ON1. Let's see. Justin says, I love ON1. Yep, absolutely. Tim says, hey, Eric, sorry for joining late. Just had to put my wife to bed. That's a funny one. Let's see. Jerome says, hi from France. Thanks, Eric, for your nice videos. Wow, thank you. I can't believe watching from France. So what time is it in France right now? I have to know. Tim says, to the question about ON1, in the 2018 version, do they still not have JPEG plus RAW stacking? Or what's it called? If you have the JPEG and RAW in the same folder, it only shows one image. Yeah, that I'm not sure if that's coming soon. I'm not sure if it's already. I'm honestly not sure if it's already a feature. I don't use the JPEG RAW stacking at all. I've never have, so that is a good question, but I will make sure I get the answer. Tim, if you don't mind, just shoot me like a Facebook message over on my Finding Middle-earth Facebook. I'll make sure I get that answer for you, so that way I don't forget. Just shoot me an email or a Facebook message or something, and I'll make sure to get that answer for you. But they did create something in ON1 2018 called versions, which is cool. So you can right-click on any of your photo and create a version, and it's just like creating a virtual copy in Lightroom. So it doesn't take up more disk space like it would on other RAW processors in the past. And I think ON1 had versions when they were ON1 10 before they came out with RAW, so I'm glad to see them bring that back, because I always like having at least 4 or 5 different versions of a photo, and then I can kind of go back and see, what I like best. If I like it in black and white, or if I like it more saturated, less saturated. There's so many people that basically have this mindset, and it gets on my nerves. I teach this in my workshops for people to look out for this, to not do this. So basically, there's these people that think that photos are almost like their treasure, and that once you edit a photo and you lock it in and you export it, you can never touch it again. And that's not true. You can go back and reprocess photos from 10 years ago if you want. I mean, there's no shame in that. And people think, oh, but what are people going to think if I delete that off my portfolio and re-upload it with this new flair? Who cares, right? If it looks better, do it. So I do that all the time. If I have one photo and I can't really decide which way I want to go with it, sometimes I'll process it in 2 or 3 different ways. I'll export them all, and I'll just kind of stare at them, and I'll pick my favorite for the portfolio, and then maybe I'll use the others for other things. I'll release a black and white version if someone wants a black and white for print. Maybe someone wants a color version for print. It just kind of depends, but the creating different versions of your photo actually makes you more creative, because you might like something in one photo that you don't like in another. And I've had times where I've created like 4 or 5 different versions of one photo, and I like one thing about each of them, so I'll just take those little things from each photo and I'll put it into one master photo. So I'll say, oh, I really liked the way that preset worked on the sun, and I like what that did to the color of the tree. So I'll just kind of Frankenstein all those little presets together into one, and creating different versions of that photo helped me kind of realize that. So creating versions of your photo is actually an awesome thing. It kind of keeps you more creative and helps you figure out exactly where you want to go with the processing on your image. And that, it also depends if you're a big post-processor as well. I think post-processing is just super fun. I could do it all day long. I think it's just as fun as being outside and taking photos. Even though I like the outside more than the inside, it's still very fun to come back and, reminisce that whole shooting experience on the computer, and then actually get to wield it, to shift the light which way you want. Let's see. Jerome says 10:04 p.m. in France right now. Wow. It's, what time is it here? Where I am, it is 4:06 p.m. It's the afternoon, and it's storming outside. So I can't go out and shoot today, so I figured I would do a live stream here with you guys. Tim says, that sounds awesome. Thank you. We'll shoot you a message. Good you understand my not perfect English. Yeah, no, you type just fine English, Tim. So yeah, just shoot me a message and I'll get you that answer for you. Okay, well, I know this is kind of a short stream, but I just wanted to show you guys kind of my favorite features of the new ON1 2018. I've just been really excited about it because I've been kind of buried in my office for the last 24 hours learning it, kind of getting used to everything before I did a live stream like this, so I could actually demo it properly and make it look cool. And man, I'm just excited about it, especially since this is the beta, because it's already so fast. The best, probably the best thing about it, which I can't really do a demo of this because it pops up 3 different windows and it's hard to tell my live streaming software to capture all these windows. But when you do the HDR merge inside of ON1 2018, it is so fast. It takes about 5 seconds on my computer, 5 seconds to mix all the brackets together and give you a preview. And the second that preview opens, you can post-process it. It's a 32-bit HDR raw file. It's crazy. You can do the highlights, the shadows. They have their whole develop module that opens in an entirely new window for you. So if you are into HDR blending that way, with just doing a quick bake on it in the software, it's really fast. It's much faster than most softwares that I've used. As you guys know, I've reviewed Aurora HDR many times, and Aurora HDR is a really cool software. It's a cool idea, but in my opinion, it's still just an idea. It's very slow. All the MacFun products are very, very slow at processing. So I'm glad that ON1 is very speedy and snappy. Because really that, you have to start, one of my favorite things that Steve Jobs said in an Apple conference years ago is he said you have to start with the customer experience and work backwards to the technology. And when he said that, it just makes so much sense. So you have to start with the customer experience where, is it going to be fast? Is it going to waste my time? Is this software going to take 15 minutes to render something, right? You have to start by making it fast, and then you can work backwards and adding more technical things into it. But the first thing you want to do is you don't want to piss off your customers, right? Aurora HDR just made me angry because I was so excited to see the result, and I would hit process, and it would just take forever to show me the result. And when I reached out to Aurora HDR support, their email back said, "Have you tried shrinking the window?" It's like, come on, that's not customer support. Shrinking the window, like that's gonna fix the software. And it's like, yeah, I've actually tried everything. I have 32 gigs of RAM in my computer, a 4 gig graphics card. It's still not working correctly. So if you guys want speed, ON1, Pictorial, even Photomatics, all those are way faster than the MacFun products. Let's see here. Chris says HDR and Panorama are super fast. Yes, absolutely. Gaston says, Gaston, that's a cool name. I bought ON1 Photo Raw 2017.6 2 weeks ago after listening to your ON1 critique, and I'm waiting to my free update to ON1 2018 according to the actual deal when I bought the 2016 version. That's awesome. Jerome says, ON1 2018 rocks, but for me, the weakness is the time it needs to move between 2 images in develop module. What's your feelings, Eric? Yeah, so it's funny you said that, Jerome. That's actually a good thing to point out. So when you're in the develop module, the reason why people have this kind of preconceived vision of that develop module should move very quickly is because of Lightroom, right? In the Lightroom develop module, you can just hit the arrow and it will immediately go to all of your photos. And then it will kind of render the full preview. Well, in ON1, it kind of pre-renders everything, but when you shift through the different photos, it adds the lens correction to those. So it's not very fast to browse your photos in the develop module. You're meant to do that with their browse module because their whole browse module is actually very, very snappy. So if you can just kind of get out of that Lightroom, mental wall that's kind of blocking, how things should be, you'll be fine. Because I thought the same thing. I was like, man, I'm in develop module and I'm going through my arrow key to get through all my photos, but really, why in the world am I looking at all my images in the develop module? We should be doing that in the browse module, and then once you figure out what photos you want to edit, then you go into the develop module. So Yes, Jerome, I thought the exact same thing until I thought about it. It all kind of makes sense because the ON1 browse module has all the, the cool new features like the compare mode, and you can still create your versions in the browse module. And the browse module in itself is very, very snappy and speedy to shift through all your images. But then the develop module is meant for developing. It's not meant for browsing. So that's just why that is. In the future it might get faster. I'm not sure, but it makes sense if you think about it. But yeah, it is kind of weird because with Lightroom all those years, you just hop into the develop module and you can kind of browse any way you want. But ON1 is meant for browsing. So, or the browse module is meant for browsing, and the develop module is meant for developing. All right, well, I'm going to wrap up the stream here in just a minute. Sorry it's not a longer stream today. I just wanted to do the quick ON1 demo here. So you guys throw in your last questions, and I will answer those, and then I'm going to try to record a couple more videos so I can release tomorrow. Let's see. I'm going to hop back over to my window here. For some reason, my live chat window kind of hiccuped and disappeared. So give me 1 second to refresh this page. There we go. All right. By the way, oh wait, got more chats coming in. Patrick says, hope ON1 will put in Fujifilm simulation. Yeah, I'm sure they will. Chris says, the only time I go into Lightroom is when I need to upload an image to Smugmug. So why is that? Do you have your Smugmug like connected to the Lightroom library? I'm assuming. A lot of people still catalog in Lightroom, which I do that as well, and then I use developing and editing mostly in ON1. But Lightroom is still brilliant for catalog. I mean, it's very good for that, but so is ON1. For cataloging, it's just kind of pick which one you like and go with it. There's kind of no, it's just personal preference. But in the way it renders and processes your photos, in my opinion, there's no comparison. ON1 just blows Lightroom out of the water. Let's see. Jerome says, I understand your point of view. I think it's because it loads the RAW. Maybe they could use the embedded JPEG in the RAW to go the quicker, and then in masked the time load in RAW. Yeah, so that's kind of what I was thinking that they might do, because I'm assuming that's what Lightroom does, which is how it gives you kind of the quick preview so fast. But again, if you kind of get out of that mentality of browsing into the develop module and then you browse in the browse module, it just kind of makes more sense. But yes, I completely understand what you're saying there, because for years in Lightroom, we've been able to just hit D on the keyboard to go to develop and then just keep hitting that arrow, and we can do all of our browsing in there. But in ON1, it's really fast to do it in the browse module, so that's where I just do it in there, and then when I find what I want to develop, I just hop into the develop module. Chris says, yes, they have a plugin for Smugmug and 500px. Yeah, okay, that's what I figured. Because yeah, I have Smugmug too, but that's where I host all my photos. Actually, is Smugmug, but I don't have the plugin for Lightroom yet. I just haven't gotten it. By the way, I have a video coming out tomorrow, maybe Tuesday, about YouTube sponsorships and YouTube ambassadorships for all these companies and affiliate links and all that stuff. I just want to get everything out in the open, like I always am. Just be completely honest with you guys. I have quite a few friends that have big photography YouTube channels, which I'm sure you guys watch them. And a lot of us photography YouTubers will chat kind of behind the scenes about the struggles of YouTube photographers and how we kind of help support our channels and whatever. And so I'm going to make a video, or I have a video coming out tomorrow or Tuesday that talks all about that, because there's been this like stigma online that affiliate links are a bad thing, and that if you're sponsored by somebody, it's a bad thing. And so I wanted to kind of clear that up, that there are people that do that and use those things in a sneaky way, and then there are people that do it open and honestly, because at the end of the day, it's all just about having support for the YouTube channel and for the creator to keep going. So I basically just say that, you know, if you're, there's a lot of, like, pretty much every YouTube photography channel right now that I watch, they start their episode with, thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this episode. And, you know, most of them don't even use Squarespace. So that's where I think that, you know, if you're sponsored by someone that you don't even use their product, that's a little, you know, that's a little sneaky in my opinion. But if you're, you know, if you love a company's product and you love the company and then they want to sponsor you and you want to continue promoting them, there's nothing wrong with that, because it's helping YouTube creators like myself and many of my friends just continue to do what we do. It's helping income come in off of the YouTube channel so that we can continue making videos. It just helps us get motivated, and it re-inspires us to keep doing these videos. So anyway, I'll have a video about that, kind of just getting all that out, because I don't have any sponsors right now. I don't really do any affiliate links. There's like 2 companies that I am an affiliate of, and you guys already know that's ON1 and then the Firecrest Format High Tech Filters. They give me like a coupon code that saves you guys money, and then they give me a little commission on the back end. Other than that, they don't pay me to say anything. They don't, you know, I can remain completely unbiased and honest, and that's where it all comes down to, right? If a company ever approaches me and says, hey, we want to sponsor you, but you have to say you like our stuff, then, you know, no way. But if I get a sponsorship deal, or if someone, you know, wants to sponsor an episode or something where I promote their product that I like, then sure, you know, why not? Because it's just going to help me keep creating content for all of you. But the second that I have to remain, you know, that I have to be a puppet and let them wear me and just, you know, tell me what to say, I'm not ever going to do that. I still have to remain unbiased and completely level and honest and true, because that's fair to all of you guys. It would be completely unfair if I just let some company buy me out and all of a sudden I became a little talking puppet, you know, for their product, which I would never do that. Let's see. Chris says, the only thing I wish they added in ON1 is the camera profiles like Lightroom, where you can change your preset from Adobe Standard to Landscape. They told me it will be in future updates. Yeah, they've said the same thing. It will be in future updates. You know, you have to keep in mind that ON1 is still very new to the RAW processor game. And in the little amount of time that they have been in the RAW processor game, they have done so many things in a very little amount of time. So you can't help but think that just in the next 6 months to a year, imagine what they're going to do. I mean, they're moving very fast. Lightroom with Adobe, gosh, they've just done nothing. You know, I've just gotten to a point with them where Lightroom is just kind of dead to me. You know, it's like, I mean, the sharpening sucks. The highlight recovery and the shadow recovery is the best thing about Lightroom. The highlight recovery is awesome, and the shadow recovery is awesome. Everything else is just kind of normal and mediocre, and they haven't really done anything to innovate themselves in a long time. You know, Lightroom Mobile was a cool idea, but it's still, it's nowhere near, Affinity Photo was blowing them out of the water, because Lightroom Mobile doesn't even have basic, like, what do you call it? The basic clone stamping, or what? You have to like open your photo into a Photoshop app to go to the clone stamping module. It's just it's a very cumbersome process to use the Adobe stuff right now. So, yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll see. But in the little amount of time that ON1 has been in the RAW processor game, just think about what they've done so far, and it will get you excited for the future, because they're already a competitor with Lightroom. Look, I've already stopped using Lightroom, and I'm using ON1 and other RAW processors, and they've only been in this for I think less than a year and a half. I know that. And they're, you know, and like I said, the next 6 months to a year, I'm just excited to see what they're going to do. They keep adding all these cool little technology, or all this cool technology into the RAW processors. Just that Chisel mask tool that I showed you guys earlier is just a wicked cool little piece of technology to use. So, yeah, I'm excited to see where everybody's going to go for the future, because we have to have somebody that takes a risk and pushes the industry forward, so that someone else decides to challenge them and create another competing processor, and then we finally get more options. If somebody doesn't decide to take the first step, even if they fail at it, then it's just going to suck for photographers, because if no one takes a step towards innovation and creating a revolutionary product, you know, what do we have other than just mediocre software? Jerome says shadow recovery of ON1 is drill better than Lightroom. Lightroom stays better for highlights recovery. Yeah, Lightroom has definitely got a really nice highlight recovery slider, specifically to my Nikon D810 files. I'm kind of impartial to how it is on my Fuji files because Fuji has killer highlight recovery built into their raw files anyway. So pretty much any highlight recovery is good on a Fuji raw file because the highlight recovery, in my opinion, is much better than the shadow recovery ability out of the Fuji raw files. And my assumption for that is probably because the native ISO is 200, but I'm not sure because Fuji raw files do have a pretty good amount of dynamic range in them. But I think their highlight recovery ability is better than their shadow recovery ability. Chris says ON1 highlight recovery is still very good now. Yeah, I mean, it's come leaps and bounds better than it was. If you guys saw my very first ON1 photo raw video, the highlight recovery did terrible things to my files, and now it is 10 times better. It's very, very good. All right, guys, well, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the stream here. See what time it is, almost 5 o'clock. So I'm going to go ahead and grab some dinner. I'll try to record some more videos tonight so I can get them out to you guys tomorrow and over the week. Before I go, I guess I'll let you guys know, this will be the last week that I'm in this house of mine. My new house is ready. It's done being built. So I'm moving into my new house, I believe, Monday of next week. It's crazy. I have so much to do by then. So, excuse me. So my videos might be like me sitting on a couch with an iPhone, kind of vlogging style, because I'm going to be packing all of this up. My microphones, my iMac, my video stuff is all being packed. So I don't know what the video schedule is going to be like for the next 7 days or so, but I promise I'll just still get something up, even if it's an iPhone video, so we can get some content out there for you guys. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for watching, as always. Also, don't forget to follow me on social media. Especially if you want to reach out to me, I respond to messages really fast there. So follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and then of course I will see you guys in the next one. Take care, everyone.